how it happens. And I take a real live model. You have a little 3-segment or 4-segment model of the spine. If you don't, you really ought to have those little models. 2-segment, or just fine, and they sell for like $30. You stick their pinky into the vertebral foramen, and you turn it a little bit, and it pinches. A vertebral subluxation. Well, imagine we leave your pinky in there for 3 or 4 days, or a month, or 20 years, or 30 years, as is the case with most of you. What's supposed to happen to your pinky? Well, at first it's going to get all red and swollen and inflamed, and later on it's going to begin to atrophy, wither, and die. In either case, if that's not your pinky, but rather that nerve, what do you suppose happens to the nerve? Same thing. It atrophies, withers, and dies. Can't carry the innate intelligence from place to place and coordinate how your body works. Now, if that nerve happens to go to your heart, what do you suppose is going to happen? You know, it's going to dysfunction. Happens to go to your liver dysfunctions. We call that dis-ease, and I explain the concept of dis-ease. I think it's real important. Understanding the difference between dis-ease with a hyphen and diseases is essential to understanding chiropractic versus medicine. And medicine is all they know. They really hope fervently to fit us into the pigeonhole of medicine. That would be the easiest for them. But we force them by understanding dis-ease, disease, to create a new pigeonhole. And that's really important.
So we start with asking what type of practice do you want? You know, these aren't completely exclusive, but you know, you have the choice of a therapeutic symptom-oriented practice or a non-therapeutic vertebral subluxation correction practice, insurance-based, cash-based, care based on symptoms, weekly spinal checks, individuals, families, crisis care, what we call the revolving door practice, because people will either get well or they won't, and they'll leave either way, or if you want people here for a lifetime. And you have to decide which type of practice you want. Any choice that you make is yours, own it, and be happy with it, but these are kind of the two different options. Being somewhat inherently lazy, I want to do stuff right the first time and not have to keep going back to it, you know? And I think that try to keep, the ideal with the practice is to try to keep it as simple as possible, but not simpler than it needs to be, and that's Albert Einstein's quote. And the thing about the non-therapeutic model of chiropractic, it is so logical and so simple that people forget it and tend to overcomplicate it and try to muddy the water with it and make it more than what it is. And we need to kind of remember that it's a simple concept, so we shouldn't really forget it. I did, for a talk that I did in the Garden State, I wanted to do some stats, and from every patient who came in between mid-March to mid-April of 2017, these are the basics, some of the basic stats from my practice. Almost 80% started care with no symptoms. Started care.
Wow.
They walked in wanting just to get their spine checked. 75% have been coming an average of 6 years. That number is a little lower because I had a whole bunch of new people coming in during that time, so it should, you know, it would actually have been longer if it wasn't for that. 36% were under the age of 18 years of age. 96% were referred by another practice member. I have not done any advertising or marketing outside of my website in almost a decade, other than maybe, you know, sponsoring my son's soccer team in some type of, you know, one-time ad, which wasn't going to generate a huge amount of people coming in. So this has all been stuff that I've built and things that have continued based on the foundations that I've laid in the practice. And the foundation has been the philosophy. The philosophy is what will create an understanding for your practice members and pretty much do all those things listed here. It will protect you, keep you humble, give your practice life and meaning.
There's no winning room. I can't just stop everything to you. That's the attitude. Those aren't the words. You don't want to say those words. But that's the attitude. Yes.
So it's obvious that you're, you know, in a way you're creating boundaries which seem like barriers, right, to the untrained mind. Like my mind that's like, oh man, and a lot of times I feel like I am whittling down, you know, I don't get a ton of new people either, but then you're just hammering on it and whittling it down and whittling it down and whittling it down to I guess by the time you do get someone to go through all these hoops, you're gold, right? But you're really whittling it down. It seems like you're front loading the strife.
Front load's the perfect word. The whole purpose of my office procedures are to front load the new patient, to get rid of the crap. Most people wait to get rid of the crap while they collect the fee. Finding out then 3 weeks later, that guy was crap. I find out the first day.
So in that process, are you, some of the guys who, the reverse, we'll take the reverse example. There's these guys who do these practice management stuff, and the guys who are getting 50 new patients a month for 5 years, and then all of a sudden they realize they've burned out their community, right? That everybody's run through their office at a certain point. But aren't we kind of maybe doing the same thing, that we're getting a lot of our new people aren't going to stay because we're shifting through this and we're burning it out too?
I see what you're saying, but no, I don't think so.
Okay. Like, I was a pain in the ass. I had to come to the talk. I didn't want to come to the talk. And don't go, you got to go to a talk, that kind of thing.
But it's not a good limit. So now a guy who's going to call me, who was going to call me, who wasn't going to come to my lecture because he didn't want to, will be calling me.
Right.
What's the difference? Either way, it's not a patient.
Right.
I'm just making certain what's going to happen is going to happen, that's all. These are the rules. This is the way it works here. This is my practice. Never had anybody knock on my door.
You shifted me, whenever I saw you last. You said never take a walk-in, ever,
Oh, yeah.
And I was taking walk-ins. I was more like, I didn't get a ton of them, but once in a while when someone would walk in, I'd be so excited, and then...
First meeting with a new patient. You both got equal and opposite forces. One of you has to win. You've got to win for the sake of the new patient. You've got to be in control. Because you is the chiropractor. You is the one with the license. You is the one with the education. If they're telling you when they're coming in, if they're coming in, how they're going to do it, where they want to be adjusted, and you're going along with it, you're a damn fool. And you're worse than that. You can be bought. So now we know what yours is, no matter what your price is. You're a prostitute, is what you are. Yes.
Questions?
We were going to talk about some five do's and don'ts in building a dream practice, and what is a dream practice, and what does that look like? What's a good practice? What's a not so good practice? I've had both in my short career. I've had a crummy practice where it was horrible, and I was thinking about being a biology teacher, and I did the wrong thing. And I had a middle of the road practice that's okay. And I have today, which is a really cool practice. I was saying in the class I spoke yesterday, I think I'm probably the busiest solo practitioner chiropractic office in Philly, which is not saying that to brag, it's just saying like in the storm. And what I thought I needed to do to make it and have a practice. So I started out in an independent contracting position, which was horrible. And after a few years, I opened my own practice, and I developed this kind of middle of the road practice. Like, I was just like everybody else. Like, if you talked to me, you would have called me by the vernacular of the people in this room, a therapeutic straight chiropractor. Does everybody get that distinction, right? I was getting sick people well. I told people I could help their kids with ear infections. I had a diploma from the ICPA, so I was, written up in pathways about all these ear infections that were going away. And then the truth started to rear its ugly head. After you practice long enough, you're like, holy mackerel, you adjust some of these kids, and their ear infections go away. And then you adjust some of these kids, and their ear infections don't go away. Well, what the heck is that? Well, maybe I have to tell them about like probiotics and other stuff and changing their diet and stuff, and you just get sucked into this web of like, what the heck am I doing with myself? What I would say when I try to refer people, kind of like what everybody who calls himself a straight chiropractor is. They're just kind of like doing a whole bunch of different stuff, right? And the chiropractic is a piece of that puzzle. And I felt there was a little dishonesty in there. That I was telling people that this idea was for their life. And this is what I did my whole life. This is what I would do for my family. And here I was practicing in a different way, right? Letting them when those kids left, right, I locked the front door and I went over to my insurance forms and I wrote down some diagnoses, you know, and then I submitted those. And I'm like, here I am telling these parents they need to bring their kids in for life. And then they're not stupid. They get an explanation of benefits, and I diagnosed their kid with something, and I'm charging for that and all that stuff. And it just seemed, I don't know, less than right, less than awesome. And I wanted to be awesome. And so I had a little change of heart, and maybe 5 or 6 years ago now, I found a bunch of these cats in here, and I said, man, there's people who are doing this. Like,
those goals, as important as they are not gonna, you're not gonna reach your goals by setting goals. You're gonna reach them by taking powerful, powerful action. You guys woke up this morning, most of y'all probably would want to have slept in a little bit extra, but you didn't, because you want to build a future and you took massive amounts of action to get here. The most important thing that you have in your life right now, and you're not going to hear this just anywhere else, the most important thing you have in your life right now is not right now, it's the future. You will sacrifice things right now to build your future if your why is compelling enough. The second most important thing is right now. It's the second most important thing because right now you are investing right now and sacrificing to create the future that you want to have. To create the future in your professional life, in your personal development, and in your financial future. You are sacrificing right now to do that. And then the last of importance is your past. My past made me who I am right now, and who I am right now is really great, but nowhere near as close as who I'm going to be in the future, because that's what I'm creating right now. You know, I've been practicing now, next year will be 25 years. You know, people, you know, when we talk about my schooling was very important, but the majority of what I do now did not come from what I did in school. The majority of what I do now came from my experience as a chiropractor. So school is very important, and right now you're a professional student, and you need to be the best professional student that you can be. And your education excels after you graduate. People who stop reading and stop growing or didn't grow after they graduate are doing a disservice to themselves and to their communities. You're being selfish. If you're not investing in yourself every day, if you're not seeing a chiropractor every day, if you're not reading every day, and if you're not developing yourself, you're doing a disservice, and that is very, very selfish, because the people you love, the people in your community, and the people who trust you depend on you to be your best. And if you're not investing in yourself and you're not being your best, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how you can live with yourself. I mean, if I'm not reading, if I'm not seeing seeing my chiropractor, getting rest, exercising, seeing whatever, massage therapist, physical therapist, orthopedic, what I need to have that service done. If I'm not taking care of myself, I can't give my best quality to my family and to my community, and I don't know where the line is. I don't know where the line is, because my community is my family, and my office simply allows me to give them the same quality that I give my own family.